Good evening, everyone. Here we are on this lovely day, as I was just stating, October 14th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. We are holding our Citizen Advisory Committee meeting, and today's meeting agenda will cover body-worn cameras, an update on the body-worn cameras, and discussing recruiting ideas amongst the entire committee, and then we'll brainstorm some next steps, and that's what we will be covering for this evening today. And I believe we have, I'm sorry, it just says Lowell Police Department, but it says Deputy LeBlanc will be sharing an update with us today with regards to the body-worn cameras as we have requested.
Yep, thank you so much for having me. So firstly, Superintendent Richardson sends his regrets. He's actually attending and speaking at the domestic violence vigil that's taking place out in front of City Hall. So he's unable to attend this this evening, but I can say that we're moving forward, and that's good. So firstly, both of our unions, the Lowell Police Superior Officers Association and the Lowell Police Association, have both agreed to participate in a mandatory body-worn camera program. So that part of the process is all set. We've looked so far at 3 of the major manufacturers. We've had them in to show us their products and you know the benefits that their products could provide to the Lowell Police Department. Axon, Motorola, and body worn. So you know, we're definitely moving forward. So the idea, at least for now, is for the first year to be a pilot program with 30 officers. So that'll be 10 officers per shift. But then the second year, get the other 215 officers up and running. So that's the plan. It's still, you know, it's still going to take time because we still have to go through, you know, the bid process. I mean, before that, we also have to, you know, see what products, because they all have kind of their pros and cons in terms of, you know, the style, in terms of how they're worn. Some of them are clip-on, some of them are kind of built into a holder that gets kind of sewn into the shirt. Some of them can run freestanding. Some of them need like a modem in the back of the cruiser. So there's a lot of like technical stuff that we have to iron out. But we are, you know, like I said, we've had presentations from these 3 companies. It's going to be a matter of just moving forward, you know, the procurement process, but then it'll be implementation, training, things like that. But we're on track. So that's a good thing.
May I ask you a question, please?
Sure. Yep.
So you say that you have reached out to 3 manufacturers or 3 companies. Are you allowed to disclose what 3 companies those are? And if so, can you share that now so that maybe as a committee, if we wanted to do any research on those companies and what the body cameras entailed, we could do that at our liberty, and then, you know.
Yeah, so Axon. Yeah, so it's Axon. They're the major player in terms of my understanding. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure they have the highest amount of body cameras out in the country right now. And then Motorola, which they're a huge company. You know, the overarching company there is huge. They had bought up a few smaller companies, and then they're integrating their vehicle cameras and body cameras. So they're a big player as well. And then body worn, they're fairly new to the body camera industry in terms of they don't have as many units out right now, but they have some pretty innovative technology. So that was when I was talking about the one that kind of gets, basically it's almost like a holder that gets sewn into the uniform, whether it be the jacket or the vest holder or the shirt. So, you know, that's a pro for them where it won't get bumped off. It's literally inside your shirt, and it's like in a, it's like a lightweight holder that sits inside your shirt. So even if you were to be in, you know, some sort of struggle or something, it's not going to get knocked off. But then there are you know, like with all these products, you'll see if you do your research, there's pros and cons to all of them. And so it's going to be a matter of, you know, weeding through that and seeing what's the best technology that's going to do what we want, which is to have, you know, the transparency with our officers and safeguard our officers and the individuals that we deal with. So it's definitely, you know, you don't want to get into that recency bias where the next one you hear their pros and cons, you're like, well, they're the best. But it's going to come down to money too, obviously. I mean, we have to bid and things like that. And but we've been impressed with all three companies. Had a really, really good product. Like I said, some pros, some cons. Some of them are technological. Some of them, you start talking about vehicle cameras as well, which, I mean, that can be a benefit as well, because one of the companies showed us an example of an incident that occurred where the officer had a body camera and a vehicle camera, and the body camera only caught a portion of what was happening because it was pretty strict to where he was moving. But the vehicle, because it was set back a little from the incident, had a full view of the entire incident. So there's definitely arguments to be made for all these things, and it'll just be a matter of what's the best fit for us as a department. And it's going to take a little time, but we'll get there, especially now that we've got the ball rolling.
Awesome. And so once that's determined, do you have an idea or a timeline as to when that determination will take place?
Not yet. So we're waiting. We actually, I want to say that by the end of this month, early November, we're going to find out if we are awarded a grant that EOPS has put out. So that's something we're kind of waiting on. And then one of the companies, we're still waiting on their quote. So it's going to be, it's going to take a little bit. And then when you look at something like that company, if we go with them, that becomes a process of getting, we have to get our shirts kind of tailored to fit the holder and things like that. So it's definitely going to be a little bit. And then the procurement, because it is a big money expenditure, because you have to, when you think of body cameras, you have to think of the physical product, the hardware, but then storage, which obviously becomes an exponential, the first month or two, you're only using a certain amount of storage, but then as the year goes by, the second year, you're going to be using more and more storage. Luckily, I'd say generally speaking, these three companies all kind of package that together. If I remember correctly, they all have packages that are unlimited storage. So that's good. I've spoken in the past with an officer from a West Coast department, a large West Coast department that has supervisory role in their body cameras. And I remember a couple of years ago, that was one of his things, was we were funded for these cameras, but every year our storage price is going up. So luckily, it looks like these companies have seen that, and probably some hesitancy of departments to take on an ever increasing amount. So like I said, the companies we saw, it was infinite storage, as much storage as you could have in one price. So hopefully that will alleviate that problem financially. But and they're really good products too, to be honest with you. When you look at some of their storage products, their evidence, their online products, it would actually be a benefit to the department in other ways, where it centralizes some of our digital evidence. So it would actually be a benefit above and beyond the body camera, is that it makes some of our digital evidence storage that much more modern and that much more accessible just from desktop connections. So it's going to be a good thing. And I'd say the majority of officers and then bosses are definitely looking forward to it, because it's good for us, it's good for the public, and it's just another step towards making us more transparent.
Deputy, thank you so much for the update, and certainly I'm excited. This is Pastor Hernandez, by the way. Excited that both units decided to go this way. I think this is a great move for the department, and something that the community certainly will appreciate. Just a question on the storage. You're talking digital, right? Not necessarily the physical storage of the units.
Yeah, digital storage, and that that becomes a couple different issues. So the main issue is digital storage of the videos that you save, but then different cameras record. I don't want to say backwards, but you can set different revert points. So some of the cameras, if you hit the button, it'll sit back about 5 minutes or 30 seconds, depending on how you set it. And some of them, they don't store that, but then some of the cameras actually store unrecorded video for like 24 hours. So it's like a couple different facets of the storage, but the main point, the most important is storing the videos that are saved. And then, because obviously we then become, we would have to answer public records requests for those types of things, and then discovery for court and things like that. So above and beyond the storage, some of the different software helps you with, let's say, redacting people's faces. So like people that are in the if an officer goes into an office building and there's 10 uninvolved people that are just kind of in the background, a couple of the products almost will automatically do it, where you go into the software and you just click on somebody's face and it'll track them in the video and do it for you. So it's actually pretty amazing, A, how far the technology has come, but then B, how expansive the different things are that the software can do. One of the companies has a feature where you can actually transmit something. So let's say a detective goes to a convenience store and he's got video of something on their surveillance video. He could take his body camera off, videotape that video, and then send it out to everybody else's body camera. So it's there's a lot of different, like I said, it's going to be hard because all three of these companies and any other companies we might look at, they all have a lot of, like this one company has this great benefit, this one company has this great benefit. So it becomes almost a matter of, which one has more benefits probably and less, more pros and less cons. So.
Thank you.
One more question, Deputy. With regards to the one-year pilot program, do you have any other plans in mind, or just kind of like sketched in for after that one-year pilot program? Has there been any discussion that that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think that the kind of framework that we're working on now is 30 the first year and then the other 215 the next year. That first one-year pilot, really is to acclimate the department to them and then probably work out the kinks in terms of policy and things like that. I mean, case law on body cameras is super fluent as it is, especially in Massachusetts. I know the SJC just had a decision not too long ago that that will definitely have an impact on probably departments' policies. So policies is something that I think the state, I'm pretty sure the new post is going to come out with a model policy. So not a mandate, but more of a best practice type suggestion. So, there's definitely going to be a lot to work out. But like I said, we're looking to do 30 the first year and the other 215 the next year, and hopefully after 2 years have the department outfitted.
When you mean, what exactly do you mean by outfitted? Meaning every officer will carry one? Will have one?
Yeah, so every officer will go out on shift with one, but then the different companies have different, some companies, what you would probably see you'd walk into our roll call room and there would be a bank of them on the wall, and you would just take one that's charged out with you and then put it back at the end of the night. Some of the companies, you would be assigned, just like we have portable radios and firearms and pepper spray that we get assigned specifically to us. Some of the companies, they do that, and some companies offer both. Because it becomes, that's another thing, is how the video is downloaded. So some of them, one of the companies downloads almost automatically from the modem in the car. So once you record something, my understanding is once the car is in proximity to a hub at the station, it'll automatically offload the video onto the hub without the officer even having to do anything. And then some of them, it's the physical act of putting the camera into the docking station at the station, and then that uploads it, or downloads it, I should say, into our storage. So every officer will go out on shift with one, whether or not they have one specifically assigned, or if they just take an available one. We'll probably, come down to what option we pick, what product we pick.
Great, thank you for that information. Does anyone have any questions for the deputy?
I have a question.
So just to follow up, the first year is, as you said, it's just working out the kinks, but looks like the second year on, the majority, if not all the officers going out, will be wearing a camera.
Yep, yeah, that's what we're aiming for. Yes, for sure. And for us, to be honest with you, it really is one of these things where we know from working here every day that the men and women of this department are doing great work, and it's really going to be beneficial to the department, not only for prosecutions and things to that effect in terms of having that real time video of what the officer saw when he arrived on scene. I mean, that's, the value of that is it's astronomical. But then again, kind of like I said, the great work that our officers do. I sometimes tell a story of an incident that happened a couple years ago where officers were confronted with an individual that was had committed a very serious crime and then was struggling with the officers very aggressively. kicking officers, spitting on officers, and an individual from the building, a homeowner in one of the apartments, had videotaped from the floor below where the officers were escorting the gentleman down after he had been arrested. So the officers definitely couldn't see that the individual was videotaping them, and their professionalism after this altercation and use of force incident that they had just had, their professionalism with this individual who was just assaulting them was, it was what I expect and what the chief expects from our officers. But to see it in real time, it's just one of those things where you can't, it's one thing to read a report, but to see it in real life is something that's going to be very compelling, especially to juries and judges when these things go to court. I think the value of these things above and beyond just, if somebody files a complaint or something like that, but the actual prosecute, the ability for us to have that information when we go to court is going to be really, really compelling to judges and juries.
Michelle, you had a question?
Yeah, I did. I was wondering if these companies offer an audit trail so that when the video footage is downloaded, you can see if any sort of manipulation is being taken place or anything like that.
Very good question. I would suspect that that's something that's probably built into them in terms of there's no, kind of like I had said, so the one where it's automatically downloaded, the officer has no input. That just offloads from the modem in the trunk of the car without the officer even doing anything. And then, when the officer docks the camera into the docking station, that's an automatic download as well. So it would probably be, above my pay grade to be doctoring it. But I would suspect, because these types of things are usually built to a forensic level where something can be accepted in court. I mean, we have a lot of products where, it's one thing, let's say, to, what's an example? If somebody comes in, let's say, with threatening text messages, it's one thing for an officer to take a picture with a camera of that, but we have a product where we can actually connect it to the camera, to the phone, and take a forensic quality picture, probably speaking to what you're aware, it logs the metadata and everything. So there's no doubt that screenshot was taken at this exact time, and that was what was on the screen and stuff. So I'd venture to say that these companies have probably built that forensic level tagging data and metadata into the video so that there's no manipulation. It's actually pretty incredible. I know that Motorola, I know that their vehicle cameras, the level of definition that the new ones that they were going to be releasing is ridiculous. It's like 4K, nighttime, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's gone leaps and bounds. I can think of when I was a detective 15 or so years ago, and we go to convenience stores, the quality of video then compared to, I mean, even home systems now, these little Wi-Fi cameras and stuff on people's houses, it's amazing, the level of quality. So to kind of get back to your question, I would suspect that these companies built those types of things into the system. And then, like I said, their back end, so like their digital evidence storage, that would also allow us, above and beyond the body cameras. Let's say a detective goes out to a crime scene, takes photographs, they'll be able to upload those as well. So you really have these kind of all-in-one case files, I'd call it, where you've got the body camera, the photographs, if there's any other sort of digital, whether it be a text message or anything like that, it can all be uploaded right into that system, all into the case file. So let's say the district attorney's office needs to access the photographs from the crime scene. If they have the permissions to, they can log in from their office and get that evidence without having to come over here or us sending them a zip drive or one of these things. So like I said, there's value above and beyond just the body-worn cameras to all of these systems that I've seen.
Great, thank you.
I have a question as well. Would the officers have the ability to turn off the cameras, or would they remain rolling throughout their whole shift?
It depends. So there's different technology. So one of the companies actually would link to our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch. So it would know what type of call the officer's going to, and depending on how you program it, you could have it automatically turn on when the dispatchers put him in the computer or her in the computer as being off at the call. there's an option. I think at least 2 of the companies, maybe all 3, had an option where if the firearm is drawn from the holster, it automatically turns on the camera, which that's one of those things that that's a double-edged sword. It's good in that, in theory, every time you pull out your firearm, it comes on. It's bad in that there is a man, you have to charge the battery. So I would almost say that might not be a great feature. I would rather the officers are trained to always turn it on physically with pushing the button when they pull out their firearm, because when we do training, we talk about things that are called training scars, which is a bad thing that you learn from training, and you never want to have a training scar. And I think, and we haven't 100% thought it through, but having or wanting to rely on the fact that it's automatically going to turn on if you pull your gun might be a training scar, because if the battery's dead in the mechanism that makes it turn on, then it's not going to turn on. I think that we'd almost rather our officers physically push the button when they're pulling out their firearms, and be in the habit of that, so that if the technology fails, you're still you're turning it on. So yeah, so you can turn it on and off, but that's one of those things where, depending on that's one of those things where we hope that guys would, and gals would be quick to learn. Okay, push the button, push the button, push the button, because that the one kind of unintended consequence of body cameras is if an officer in good faith inadvertently doesn't turn on a camera, then the argument would have almost automatically goes to, well, they didn't turn the camera on because of this reason. So it is one of these things where definitely got to get officers in the habit of turning it on at the calls. And I'm sure the first couple of weeks it takes getting used to, but I can tell you from experience that something like turning on your portable radio when you get out of the car, after the first couple of weeks that you're a police officer, you almost do it automatically. Every time you're getting out of the cruiser, bleep, you turn on your radio. I suspect that the body worn cameras would be the same. But to answer your question, yes, they can turn it off, but trying to think.
Well, there's certain times too where they wouldn't want to have the camera on, for privacy reasons.
Right. Yeah. So because I remember I did go to a class a few years ago that it wasn't a training, but it was just a conversation about body cameras. I remember that was one of the big issues was if you go to if you go to a hospital, if you're in the emergency room and you're turning off the camera, obviously if we're dealing with, maybe a very sensitive, like a sexual assault or a child abuse case, where are you turning on the camera? Where are you turning it off for those types of reasons? So there's definitely a lot of different things that you have to kind of iron out, and those will get ironed out in policies and things like that. But it's definitely something where you'd like to, you expect that, like anything, because we're always constantly training and evolving our training, and everything the first week or two takes a while to get used to, but once you get used to it, it should be good. So again, to answer your question, yeah, you can turn it off, but I'm sure the policy will mandate, I'm sure, that if you're in an incident that requires the camera to be on, if you don't turn it on, you're gonna have to answer for it, I'm sure. And then depending on the technology, like I said, some of the technology allows for a look back period. The look back period is built in for a couple reasons. If you go to let's say you do a routine motor vehicle stop, it goes off without a hitch. I think one of the cameras, you would have to then mark it to save it. So let's say that wouldn't fall in the policy, so you wouldn't mark it to save it. But then 3 hours later, that individual files a complaint. You would want to now save it. So I know that some of them have what's called like a look back time, when up to, let's say, 8 hours after the incident, you can go back and save the incident. But again, that's all kind of depends on the technology and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I have one question, Deputy. With regards to when the officers are obviously changing shifts, or when they're now active on their shift, you said that there's a possibility that they would be responsible for actually turning on the camera. If they should fail to turn on the camera for any given reason, just a thought, what would happen?
It would definitely depend on the circumstances. the good news is that in a city like Lowell, any call that's, you know, what we would call like a hot call, like a dangerous call or a high or very serious call, you're going to have multiple officers at it. So the good news is that even if one officer either purposely or inadvertently doesn't turn on his camera, or, you know, like, you're going to have another 1-2 officers. If it's a cruiser camera, I think those record, you know, in like 24-hour cycles. You're not turning that on and off, I don't think. But it would be definitely a policy violation. But then again, it would become, you know, was it kind of like a car accident? You know, if you're driving normal and it's an inadvertent and it's not your fault, you're not going to get in trouble per se. Whereas if you're driving 100 miles down the road with no blue lights on, then you're going to get in trouble. So it'll definitely be circumstance specific. But it would definitely be something. And I can tell you, I went to, a couple of years ago, I went to one of the major cities in the country for a meeting that they had, kind of like their comp stat. And that was one of the issues. They were calling out one of the precincts because their officers had a really low, basically like having the camera on during calls rate. So it's definitely something that, now that's a huge department. That could be an issue, but I'd like to think that, you know, we're not going to have that issue. Like I said, our officers are really professional. We have a great set of guys and gals here, so I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Just a thought. Sometimes,
yeah,
you know, things happen, right? And we like to make sure that, like you said, you know, one individual may or may not have done it intentionally, and other folks will have their cameras on, and that will cover the situation should something arise. However, individuals that have the responsibility for turning on the camera should still be reprimanded if they don't. So I'm just asking, will there be something in policy with regards to making sure that they're held responsible and making sure that that's something that's taken very seriously and turning it on? You know what I mean? It's just with everything
I'm sure it will be. Yeah, I'm sure it will be. And that's also going to be one of those things that street bosses, like the sergeants that are out there, I'm sure they'll be, you know, that's something that they're going to be tasked. I mean, they're the eyes and ears of the department in terms of first line supervision. So they're really, you know, the officers, you know, these sergeants are the officers that we lean on to make sure that, you know, policies that we're implementing are actually being, you know, adhered to at the patrolman level. So, you know, I wouldn't expect an issue, but like you said, yeah, I'm sure there would definitely be a policy saying when you should be turning your camera on. So just like any other policy violation, it'd be looked into, and then, you know, appropriate action would be taken.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions for the deputy? Okay, so at this time, we're just gonna go over some recruiting ideas. I'm not sure if anyone in the committee has any other recruiting ideas that you would like to kind of take advantage and put out there at this time.
Okay, is it possible to go over the actual spots that we need? The representation?
Sure, I could do that. So I've been looking at the city census breakdown, the most recent, the 2020 census breakdown, compared to the sworn officer census within the department. And when looking at the differences, so I'll go through everything. So when we are referring to white individuals, like, so the census, we're at 61% in the city, and then our sworn officers are at 75%, which means we're, you know, over by about 14%. And when we're talking about Black or African Americans, the city census is 8%, and the LPD's is 3%. So we're under around 5%. One of our biggest differences is within the Asian community. Our census is at 23% for the city, and for our sworn it's 7%. So we're down 16%. We're below by 16 percentage points. And then in our Hispanic population, the census is 18%, and our sworn population, our sworn members make up 15%. So we are, the difference between that is 3% below what the city census is. The largest discrepancy is in our genders, which in reviewing this became pretty apparent. You know, our females, the 2020 census is 50, it's 50-50, 50 males, 50 females, according to the 2020 census for the city. And our sworn members only make up 9%. Sworn female members make up 9% of the Lowell Police Department. So the biggest discrepancies are within our Asian officers and our female officers currently. While there's still discrepancies with, you know, our Black or African American, comparing the census to our sworn, and the Hispanic comparing census and sworn, but the biggest ones are with Asian population and females.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So do we have any creative ways of engaging with more potential female recruits to join the Lowell Police Department?
So we're actually in the process. We're working on what's called the cadet program. It's a program that a lot of bigger departments have. Boston has it, Cambridge has it. I want to say Bridgewater has it. So what it is, it's a program where we can hire every year individuals. I think it's 18 to 23 years old, and it's really a co-op program where these individuals will get hired by us. They learn not only about policing, but then they learn aspects of the jobs, and they would work at the police department. It's a full-time job. It would have benefits, but the benefit of this program is that if we were able to get legislation passed through the state, which most departments that do this program do, we would be able to hire these individuals direct from the cadet program to the police department, and it will allow us to get to those individuals outside of the numbered civil service list. So, you know, Boston has been doing it for a while, Cambridge has, so, and there's a lot of success stories. So like William Gross, who was the commissioner in Boston, he was a cadet. One of the deputy chiefs in Cambridge had been a cadet. So it's a program that allows us to hire individuals. We get to see how they work for a couple of years. And if we like the work that they're doing and we think they're going to be a good addition to the police department, we can hire them. So it allows us to zone in on underrepresented. So underrepresented communities in terms of the census to the sworn comparison, and then be able to hire them outside of the civil service list if we see that they're going to be good employees. And it really it allows us to really address that sworn to census population difference, because the civil service list doesn't. We have to hire individuals as they're ranked on the civil service list. Obviously, if there's a reason to bypass, we don't have to, but you know, that ties our hands a little bit. And Asians are not considered minorities on the civil service list. So I know that's something that some individuals have looked at passing legislation to make that the case, but as of right now, it isn't. And obviously, that's the largest minority community in the city. So we want to be able to hire numbers that reflect the community. So the cadet program, I think, will allow us to do that. We just received a grant for it, which we were kind of waiting to hear. So now it's a matter of that legislative, you know, the logistics of the legal part of it. And that's something that the city law office is working on. And we have the, you know, we have the ball rolling. It's going to be a matter of putting it together, because it's a pretty comprehensive program. So like I said, they'll be hired as City of Lowell employees. We're going to train them to do different things in the police department. But then there is an educational aspect to it. And if you look at some of the other communities that have them, one of the communities has an actual educational component to it. Like you have to be enrolled in a college, like a 2-year college, I think, at least a criminal justice program, to be able to apply to be a cadet. So it really is, it's something that we're really excited about, the chiefs behind it. And we're really hoping that we can get it done. And now that we've got this grant, I think that's definitely going to kind of put us over the hurdle. So we're excited about that.
Where exactly do you market that to, Deputy?
So that's something where, so with the civil service tests, the way we hire now, we have to advertise the civil service test. So we don't decide when it is, we don't decide what it is. So a lot of our recruitment efforts become educational efforts, teaching people how to become a police officer. It's not as simple as, a lot of departments in Nashua, they'll just put an ad. Nashua Police Department is hiring, come take the test on this date. That's not how ours works. So, when I was looking at becoming a police officer before kind of the internet, it was a little harder to figure it out. You had to maybe know somebody who had a family member that was a police officer, or you had to do your research. Now with the internet, hopefully that word is out more, but then that puts an onus on us as well. So that's why we developed our recruiting email, where individuals could write into us and ask us questions about the recruiting process. We did our informational sessions. We posted them on the internet. So to get back around to your question, this cadet program allows us to or dictate the terms of the hiring. So we would put out an announcement. The City of Lowell Police Department is hiring cadets. You have to do A, B, C. And then so it really allows us to really be able to control the hiring process. So that's why it's something that would really benefit us.
And I think we would definitely utilize the high school, Middlesex Community College, and UMass Lowell, and reaching out to, obviously the CJ Department, Criminal Justice Departments, and UMass Lowell and Middlesex, but also reaching out to the school department to seniors as well.
And I think it's really a benefit. So the state just recently changed it so that the civil service test is every year, which I think is going to be a benefit, because it used to be if individual came into the police station and said, how do you become a police officer? And we'd say, you have to take the civil service test. And they'd say, when's the civil service test? We'd say, it was last week. We'll see in 2 years. So now, if they're not, it's a 1-year cycle. So once you learn that it's how to get hired, the test is going to be within a year. So hopefully that's gonna kind of benefit the process. And I see it all around. I mean, I was just in a different city outside of Lowell just before the test, and they had signboards. They had message boards out that said, do you want to be a police officer? The civil service test is next month. So that's, something as simple as that. We have 3 signboards here at the police department. So I can guarantee you that next year we'll be doing that, maybe on the boulevard or on 110 inbound or wherever, and put them on some major roads and just get the word out. Because I can remember when this is going back some years, but I can remember working the main desk, and a person came in and they said, hi, I'd like to apply to be a detective. And it wasn't that he hadn't looked, obviously he wanted to have the job, but that's not how it works. So then you have to explain. So it's definitely something you have to look into to figure out how to get the job. And so, and then, different things that we do, when we do our outreach events and stuff like that, it's getting the word out. And an event like that, it's not specific to tell people how to take the test, but I can tell you 100 times where I've been at one of those events and they say, hey, my son's interested, or my daughter, or hey, I'd like to be a police officer. How do I do that? So any event that we do tends to lend itself. I mean, I talk sometimes to different college classes about different criminal justice issues, and I always stay late, and I'll always have 2 or 3 people come up and say, hey, when are you guys hiring, or how do you get hired here? I'm from New Hampshire, I'm from Vermont originally, how do you guys hire? So it really becomes informational. It's just telling people how to take the test, and hopefully hopefully the more and more the word gets out and people realize that's what you have to do to become a Lowell police officer, then hopefully that just but I'm going to tell you, statewide the numbers of people taking the test have gone down over the last couple of years, but I can tell you from personal experience that the officers we're getting here, these young officers, are still really great. They're doing a great job, and they're in it, and it's so far we're still having good luck in terms of the men and women that we're hiring, but it's definitely getting the word out, and we'll get there.
Is it against protocol by any chance to actually reach out to any organizations that focus on women, or in fact, in this case, the Asian community? They have their, their newspaper, their channels, and their organizations. Is there a way where we can intentionally market, the cadet program or anything of that nature, so that they're aware that these are options for them in order to become part of the Lowell Police Department?
Yep. Yeah, there's no problem at all doing that. We've done it. We reached out to the CMAA. We actually set up a program last year where we were offering to pay if individuals were unable to pay the money to take the test, that we would, the city backed us in doing that to allow us to do that. And like you said, it's getting out to different organizations. But no, there's no you know, we can go out anywhere we want, and we do it. We have different fairs and stuff like that, like job fairs and stuff, and go out. I know that when I was the director of the academy, we used to do it at Middlesex, and UMass Lowell would do it, and things like that. And I think you see more and more. So when we did our youth outreach event, there was a state trooper out here. His specific job is a community outreach officer. Middlesex Sheriff's was out here. The National Park was here. So this is like, you know, I think law enforcement wide, you're seeing more and more departments are embracing going out and recruiting and things like that. The big cities have done it for forever and ever. You know, I can remember when I was in college, like the NYPD would have a flyer come out. But now I think you're seeing every department across the country is making sure that they're getting out, because we don't want to lose that those good candidates to different occupations. And you know, in such a diverse city like Lowell, I mean, we have people come from so many different backgrounds, and that is such a benefit to the department, because you have some people from a higher socioeconomic, you know, upper middle class, lower middle class, whatever, but to have those various opinions and those various experiences out here on the street. And like I said, when you have multiple officers going to different calls, and you see a lot where a guy will go to a call and he'll be like, oh, that's the house I grew up in over there. So, you know, it's a matter of getting out to the kids in this city and making sure that some of them are coming here and applying to be police officers.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions or any suggestions for the deputy?
Would people have to meet the education requirement to do the cadet program, like be enrolled in the 2-year program, as you were saying?
I don't think we haven't looked at that as a requirement. We were actually kind of trying to see if we could make it a benefit, where we've kicked around the idea of maybe reaching out to Middlesex and UMass Lowell and seeing if they'd maybe let our cadets take a class or two for free, so that there can be an educational component to it, because that is a component to it where it won't just be them, let's say, learning to assist with some records in the criminal bureau, let's say. A big part of it is almost going to be like the same type of stuff that you would learn at the Citizens Police Academy, where the different supervisors and different officers would, you know, have some classroom time where they could teach these individuals about the job and what it really entails. So that's the benefit to them. So, you know, the benefit to us is we get to see their work ethic. Do they show up on time? Are they, you know, following the rules, policies of the department? But then they get to see a more realistic version of what police work is than maybe what they would see on TV or learn about in a classroom. So I want to say there was the gentleman that I spoke to from Boston. He said they've actually had, so they have a lot of their cadets become Boston police officers, but then he said some of their cadets say, you know what, I think I'd actually want to be a dispatcher, or you know what, I think I'd want to be a crime analyst. So the benefit is not only to the department, but then it's to the individual who might say, oh, you know what, I'm not sure if I want to do that part of the job, but you know, maybe, like I said, crime analyst, dispatch, research and development, things like that. I mean, it's not just police officers that work here. We have a great non-sworn civilian staff that is, you know, the foundation of this place as well. So it's a good way for people to learn about the job, to be honest with you, outside of the benefit that it gives to the department.
So the statistics or the audit on the Lowell Police Department with regards to race or gender, it's basically done on everyone that's employed by the Lowell Police Department, not just the actual officers on foot.
So the data that I have and that I've been compiling is on the officers, the sworn personnel. I don't have access to all civilian personnel at my fingertips right now. I have all the sworn stuff because we've been intentionally looking at that specifically right now.
That might be something to look into. The numbers might change, Marianne, because I personally know a lot of individuals throughout the community and of Hispanic or, you know, any other culture, any other race that actually are employed by the Lowell, you know, the city for the Lowell Police Department. So I think that that's information that is worth looking into, so that you can share with us, so that we have a little bit more insight on that.
Definitely, I will look into it for next meeting.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions or suggestions at this time?
So I definitely think this is something that we can, and the committee members can continue to think about, because as we create and shape the cadet program and the job descriptions, like, so that's, we just received the grant funding, so that's a few months out before we're posting those positions. So we have a little time to strategize on, you know, recruitment for cadets. And then we also have a little time for the recruitment and education of taking the exam. So we definitely want to look at both of those again in the coming months, because like Deputy LeBlanc mentioned, the civil service exam is going to be offered yearly now. And they've already posted actually on the civil service website that it's going to be March of 2022. Tentatively, that's what they have listed. So we're definitely going to be, and hopefully we're doing these recruiting sessions in person as opposed to online that we did, you know, last year. But we definitely want to be recruiting before that time, when it's the deadline to take the test, and then the test, because we'll do a prep course again like we have in the past, offer to individuals, Lowell residents that have signed up to take the test, but really getting the information out there on how to take the test and what it is, what you need to do to become a police officer.
And if you look at, if you search online for cadet programs like Boston, Cambridge, Waltham, there's a lot of information. Like they talk about what their cadets do, the hiring process. There's a couple, if you Google it, that are more like Explorer programs. They'll call it a cadet program, but it's not. But like I said, Boston, Cambridge, Bridgewater, Waltham, if you go to their websites, they have a lot of information that'll probably explain it to a much more intricate detail than what we kind of just mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Marianne, I'm wondering if there might be like a one-pager thing that could be given to us and we could share with our community members.
Yep.
Also, Deputy, does Lauren have a cadet program? Because it seems like they got something in Lawrence.
The last I was aware, they used to have auxiliary officers who used to actually go out and patrol. But I don't know. I remember I used to see the actual cars, especially like on a Friday or Saturday night. But I'm not sure if they still do that. I don't think they have a cadet program. I think the state police are actually working on a cadet program. I saw something on their website. So I was actually going to ask some of our partners if they could connect me with the person who's putting it together. But like I said, Boston's program is probably one of the biggest ones. And the gentleman that I talked to, and they have, like, you can go on their website, they actually have pamphlets. I just printed one out because they have a new one. In fact, I think it's actually right here, that they just put a new pamphlet up for their next kind of hiring cycle. And it talks about, like I said, about how their retired superintendent, the Boston Police Academy director, were all cadets that became full-time police officers. And like I said, William Gross, who is a very well-respected former commissioner out there, was a cadet as well. So it's a program that is successful, not because we're saying it might be successful, but because there's like a lot of history. Like I said, I know I went to a training with one of the Cambridge deputy superintendents who had been in their cadet program. So it's definitely got a track record of success.
I'm going to put a link to the to that flyer that the deputy is referring to in the chat to everyone.
Great. If no one has any other questions or suggestions at this time, we can just kind of briefly go over some of the next steps. I don't know if Nader has anything that he wants to share, discuss, or any questions?
Oh, yeah, just wanted to use this time to see what are there aspects of community ties or any initiatives that you guys wanted to work on, like so we could have like sort of a concrete framework that we could move forward on, because I know the last couple ones, it's been a lot of discussion, researching, getting the information. But I think that as you know, we reached that 1 year mark of this committee, we should start moving into what we want to do exactly. I know just as the deputy was speaking, I was thinking that one of the steps that I could do personally with UMass Lowell to get the ball rolling on the cadet, and I think we could possibly do it with Middlesex as well, is to set up a meeting between UML PD and Lowell PD to discuss things such as cameras, public safety, and expanding those partnerships. Because I know there's like a memorandum of understanding, but going deeper, and then what the deputy said about like possible free classes for students, because that would be an incentive to join the cadet program. That's just on the UML side, but I also think what Michelle brings up about like partnering with those like nonprofits, and especially those ones that cater to women and minorities, I think that that would be really beneficial. I don't know what anyone else has to think. I know in the community ties, that's one of the main like components of it, like that community aspect. And I know not UML, I know Lowell PD does a great job at community policing. And I know this body camera thing is one of the major components of it as well, and what a lot of people have been asking for. So I think that, you know, we're already going in that direction. It's about how to continue it. And as I always say, like Lowell has always been a leader in policing, and I think that just setting that next standard. I know because with the post commission and whatnot, just always being ahead of the trends, we always are. But looking forward. So I just wanted to hear everyone's thoughts and what you guys wanted to do. And so we, you know, so Frederique, Michelle, and Marianne and I can kind of draft what are the main like pillars we want to work on or specific initiatives.
I think that for the police department to have like more positive like interactions with the community, and like just like doing things with the community, like the National Night Out and like Coffee with a Cop, things like that, which I spoke with Malika, and we're planning Coffee with a Cop at CMA in November, on November 6th, I think it was. So having more things like that in specific parts of the city and specific like with specific like groups of people, I think that would be a good goal to have for the department.
So increase the coffee and the cops, basically. And what was the other? I'm sorry.
I said just community interactions, like
additional or more, like, so increase the community interaction in the coffee and the cops so that there's more of it.
Right. I think now like more things can happen in person, especially having had like a whole like year online, like, you know, people need to like get back to like doing stuff in person and seeing like, you know, police officers like face to face.
I don't know if anybody's been able to look at our Facebook page recently, but in the last couple of weeks, we hosted our first Lowell Police youth outreach event, like where we it was kind of like carnival / outreach. We had a bunch of carnival games. We had, you know, our other law enforcement partners in the community were in attendance. We had pizza and Kona Ice. We had a video gaming van set up, like really trying to attract all ages, you know, the young and, you know, teenagers. And it really turned out successful. And we had it right on JFK Plaza. We had a lot of attendees. And it's definitely something that we are looking to make an annual event out of, and we're able to piece together a couple different funding sources between grants, private funding, and the unions. We were able to, you know, give out raffle prizes. You know, people playing the carnival games were able to earn prizes with tickets, just like you do at like Chuck E. Cheese and whatnot, or at regular carnivals. So it was really good, a great event that we definitely look forward to doing some like that on an annual basis.
I will take 1 minute to give Marianne a lot of credit because she put a lot of work into that, and it was really, really successful. But it goes, and I remember when I went to a coffee with a cop and I spoke to Michelle, actually, I had mentioned this, and it's one of the things that it goes to what Zarias was saying, that I would remember going to community meetings 20 years ago. So even patrol officers here at the Lowell Police Department go to these things from day one. So yeah, coffee with a cop. I mean, we love going to them, and it's not something, it's not something to us really that's like, oh, I got to go to another one of these. It's like I said, we've been going to community meetings. I've been going to community meetings for 20 years here as a patrol officer, as a sergeant, lieutenant, captain. I mean, it's just something we've always done. So for us, it's natural. For these officers, so this domestic violence vigil they just had, before we started our meeting, I talked to the CO and I said, hey, whoever you get for portables or walking routes downtown, have them come down to the vigil. And I just saw a few of them walking across the plaza here. And like I said, it's something that it's not those officers to get that call from the CO. It's like, oh yeah, we'll head right over, because it's just something that's kind of ingrained. And kind of going back to what Nader had said, I had spoken to the UMass Lowell chief at our youth outreach event. There were a couple of their officers were out here. So that goes a long way too. So because then you're getting, there was the National Park was out there, the sheriffs, a couple of our NEMLEC SWAT guys were out there. So, for the boys and girls and the younger kids to actually be able to interact with police officers, it's kind of what Zarias said, you can't, that's super important. I didn't have any police officers in my family or anything like that. So you don't, you have this, I guess, TV version of a police officer, but you never talk to one or anything like that. So when these kids come out, or even when it's stuff at the colleges and stuff like that, just to be able to kind of put a handshake and actually talk to somebody, and they'll, because like I said, a lot of our police officers are kids that grew up in the Acre, kids that grew up in the Highlands, kids that grew up in Belvedere, kids that grew up in the Outer Highlands. So, you can't overvalue a kid from the Acre, meaning a police officer who grew up in the Acre, and saying like, oh, okay, well, this guy or girl was just like me when they were a kid, and maybe I could be a police officer. And when you overcome that hurdle, I mean that's half the battle, is humanizing the men and women behind the badge. So yeah, coffee with a cop. I mean, these outreach events, I can't even, I'd go on for a while to talking about these things. We really do like doing them here, and it's like I said, the value of being able to actually interact with us, interacting with the kids, or the kids interact with us, or college students. It's awesome.
Yeah. And if you can think of, think of other like locations, there might be things that we're not thinking about. So other places, locations, I mean, we have done them everywhere. We've done them in the past at UTEC. We've done them of obviously places of worship, at our, social service agencies. We've done them numerous places, but there might be things out that, like, organizations that we're not thinking of. So if you, as a group are able to come up with a list or come up with any suggestions, feel free to email me, and we, start a list going of locations that we should go to, because there are, what I've learned over the years, there are so many organizations and so many agencies within the city. It's hard to always keep track of them all, especially as the people trying to, coordinate the events. So if community members, please feel free to share that with us, and we can, start a list of places that we need to go and have coffee with a cop or other types of events.
Have you ever done it for the businesses? Just to kind of build relationship with business owners? And
we have done them in some private businesses, but definitely not all of them. Definitely not all of them.
Maybe like a series of that for some of the businesses could help, Different neighborhoods have their own little, I want to say, like little plazas, they're all businesses, and I'm sure they would like to have some healthy relationships with the police officers.
I was just gonna add, I was just thinking about it, like maybe we could do a kind of like a community forum and co-host it with different organizations across the city. So we could probably do if I'm not mistaken, does the police divide the city into 3 sectors?
Mm-hmm.
So we could probably do one in each sector, and then host one, like for example, like it's already like CMAA, and then like the Latinx Center, and one like we could do probably one focused on like nonprofits, another one focused on business leaders, and then another one like more public focused. Like I'm just thinking for the business leader ones, like the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce, like other downtown businesses, just like with different groups to get, because each, you know, like business group interests are kind of different from what nonprofits interests are and what the public interests. So I think that actually it's perfect that we have three different sectors, because it's like the three different sectors of the city. And I think with that we can get like a good grasp of what the city wants, because I know we're just a small like subsect of that, and we're also heavily involved in the city and not everyone is. So I think maybe like 3 community forums, like a series, what Michelle said, like a series of forums where we discuss as a committee, like community ties, we discuss what we've worked on, like all the information we have, and then the deputy and the superintendent can give updates on like the pilot program. Marianne can give like the diversity updates. I feel like it would just be a good like platform to start these discussions and to also like give updates to the community. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we can say like, hey, like this is our plan, our recommendations as a committee to the police department, and we got community input, and this has been a year in the works. So that's just something that I was thinking about.
Sounds good. Does anyone have anything to add to that? We're a little over, but.
No, but I do, if you didn't have anything else, Michelle, I just want to mention something about, so as everyone knows, we're currently down 3 members, so 2 high school students and 1 nonprofit leader. We've only received a few resumes through the city HR department. We will pump it out again on social media, and I'll share it again with the group. We do have 1 prospective high school student that I think is going to work out really well. We just have another follow-up meeting with her next week. But definitely, I had an initial meeting with her this week, and it's definitely very, very promising. I think she'll be perfect for the group. So I'll keep you posted on that. But that still means we still have we need 1 high school student, and we need another another high school student and a nonprofit leader. So if we can get your help in like pumping that out to the community, and you know, they have to send their resume and information in just like any other like job in the city, goes through HR, and then we get them from HR. But if we could get your help with that, that'd be great.
Awesome. I'll continue to push it, Marianne.
Thank you.
I think that's it. I think we've covered everything on our agenda. I don't know if Frederic has anything to add in closing. Other than that, we'll just follow up with everything that we said we were going to do, and we'll discuss it so that we can prepare our next agenda. Frederic, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything else to add besides, you know, saying thank you to Deputy LeBlanc for coming out. He was really, really informative and very patient with all of our questions. And we definitely learned a lot of useful information today. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys having me. I tend to talk a lot.
We had a lot of questions.
Thank you for sharing the information. That was really helpful to us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. If no one has any other suggestions, questions, or concerns, that finalizes our meeting for this evening, and it will be adjourned at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.